Hey everybody, this is week 9, and today we're going to talk about the art of networking and how important networking can be to your future. Now I know for many people the word networking has a very bad connotation. I think people imagine themselves in at a party or a networking event, and they look around and they have to go and introduce themselves to people they don't know. They need to try to get something from them or give them a business card or try to ask for something from them and try to get a job, that kind of thing. That's not the kind of networking we're talking about. That does have its place, but that's not really what we're going to focus on, because hopefully those opportunities may not be necessary if you can look at some other tools that I think are going to be more helpful for you. So I want you to keep in mind that really networking is not glad handing. Networking is just taking stock of the people that you know and bringing that information together in an organized fashion that makes it useful. So it's really just organization of the relationships that you have. We all have important relationships, and those relationships all have connections to other people. So through your family, you know people; through your work colleagues, you know people; through your fellow students, you know people, and they all know people. And sometimes it's just a matter of figuring out, what great resources you already have within your network to help you get to where you want to go. It doesn't mean using people, it just means making those connections and building relationships that will help people want to help you get to your goal. So those are really, I think, in some ways a good definition of what networking can be. So what are some tools that make this possible? Well, this week we're going to talk about two primary tools that I think you should definitely dig into and utilize. The first of these is the informational interview. I think this is the classic networking tool. I don't know if you've ever done an informational interview, but you're going to do one this week, and I find these incredibly useful. So what is it? Well, basically, you contact somebody in a position of knowledge or skill or expertise or power, and you ask them if if they would share information with you. So you set up a meeting. Maybe you take them to coffee, or you go in and just meet with them individually, and you say, I'm trying to get more information about this particular field or these kinds of opportunities. You strike me as somebody who is an expert in those areas or knows a lot about that, and I wondered if you would be willing to share your expertise with me. Now, the important thing here is that you're not asking for a job. You're not asking for them to connect you with somebody. You're not asking for a specific thing that's going to make them uncomfortable. What you're asking for is their expertise, their wisdom, and their knowledge. And just by human nature, people want to share those things. They like the fact that they have gained a certain amount of expertise, and they probably are willing to share it with you. And people typically like to share things like that with younger people. They see themselves in your experience, and they want to, mentor others maybe as they were mentored. So for the most part, most cases, you're going to be generally well received if you do this right. If you say, hey, could I meet with you sometime? I'd just love to get a little more information about the field you work in. And then when you're with them and you're actually meeting, you're asking questions that, again, are approaching their expertise. So you're saying, can you tell me about how you got into this field? Why did you decide to get into this field? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? What kinds of skills are going to be the most important? If I was thinking about going into this field, what advice would you give me? What can I work on to build up my skills? Now, it's also a great opportunity. If you get nothing more than that kind of great advice, then it's been a wonderfully successful informational interview, because you've learned something, you've increased your knowledge, and you've kind of recruited an ally who now knows that you have an interest in things in that field. And so if some opportunity comes up, maybe they will let you know, and maybe they will connect you with somebody else, right? So you've recruited an ally and you've gained information. Now, you may go beyond that and have opportunities to do things like, if you get into a good conversation, maybe say, gee, that's great. Would you be willing to take a look at my resume? I'm trying to put it together to make sure that it makes sense for that field. Would you be willing to take a look and see if there's things that I should add, or areas where I could, maybe strengthen it to do a better job and be more attractive to people in that field? So then you've just added another bonus of something that's helpful to you. And you may get into a situation where the person says, not only might they help you do something like that, but they might also connect you to another person. They might say, oh, you know what, here's somebody that you should really talk to. Here's a particular, I've heard they have job opportunities over here. Or, you know what, I could make a connection for you if you're interested. That is sort of the ultimate piece, right? And you can, if you've had a great conversation, if the person doesn't volunteer that, you can ask for a next sort of handoff. You just have to do it gently and in the right way. You don't typically say, well, do you know anybody who has jobs in this? Do you know where I could get one, or that kind of thing? Instead, you say, oh, this has been great. This has been really helpful. Is there anybody else that you think, is another expert in the field that could give me, additional perspective, or, maybe a different look at things that you think would be helpful as I'm trying to figure out what it is, where it is I want to go. And oftentimes they will have a recommendation of somebody that they could connect you with. And then you follow that lead as an informational interview and do an informational interview with that person. And that sort of leads on to the next opportunity. So that's part of what you're going to do this week. Your assignment is to informationally interview with somebody where you are working. Obviously, this may be a boss or someone senior to you or somebody with a good amount of experience that you can potentially recruit as an ally for your future career interest, and just invite them to a conversation, ask them for their expertise, and see if they would be willing to share that with you. So that's part one. Now, the other piece that can be extremely helpful when it comes to networking is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool. Depending on how far you've dug into LinkedIn, you may see it as just a way to sort of collect people's names and keep in touch with them, which it definitely is, and you can use it in that way. But it's also a great way to make deeper connections. So I've used it, for example, to reach out to somebody that I know to say, oh, I see that you also know people here. Would you be willing to recommend me to that person or make a connection for me to that person, and then follow it up on that connection and ask questions. You can also do things like work with the advanced search, and you can go to the advanced search and type in, maybe you would like to work for Google, and you put in, Google, and then you put in the institution that you went to. My undergraduate was West Virginia Wesleyan. So if I put in Google and West Virginia Wesleyan, I can find out people who I might have graduated with or alumni of the same college that work at the place that I'm interested in. And then I could reach out to them and say, oh, by the way, hey, I went to West Virginia Wesleyan too, and I noticed you worked at Google. Google's a place I'm really interested in. Can you tell me what it's like to work there? Can you give me any suggestions? Again, would you be willing to look at my resume to give me suggestions and thoughts on maybe how to approach the field and to learn more? So it becomes a wonderful networking tool to help you do that. And there are lots of little things that you can do based on that. Just reaching out to your colleagues and your connections to say, hey, what do you know about this opportunity? I've heard about this, but do you have any more information? And maybe they can connect you and give you a recommendation into that place. And to reach out to them for general recommendations, right? Especially, I think, as you start potentially a new job search, to reach out to people who are in your LinkedIn contacts and say, I'm kind of prepping my materials to start thinking about new opportunities. Would you be willing to put up a LinkedIn reference for me? And those recommendations can be really helpful. And it also, again, lets people know that you are looking around. It lets them know what you're interested in, what you're hoping for. And again, you've recruited an ally who can help you in your process. And that's really what networking is all about. It's recruiting an ally network. It's saying, okay, who do I know, and who could I bring into my circle of friends and acquaintances that like me and have a reason to try to want to help me be successful. And then alerting those people to your interest in potentially another opportunity or whatever it is that you want to get to. And then again, a way to stay organized and say, okay, who is it that I really know? And am I managing my network well? So those are, I think, two of the strongest tools that you can use when it comes to networking. Now, you may have opportunities to bump into somebody on an elevator in the classic scenario, and it's important to have your, short pitch ready of who you are and what you want to do, or go to those networking events classically. But I think in a lot of cases, that kind of friendlier, low-key informational gathering is really where you want to start. That's what broadens your network and brings people into it. So you do have to know what it is that you want to do. I think especially as you start digging deeply into your informational interviewing and your networking, it's hard for people to help you if you really don't know what it is you want to do. So you don't want to go into these conversations just saying, well, I don't know, I want a new job, and can you help me figure out what that is? They're not really there to do career counseling for you, but they can give you advice and they can help you figure out, what their part of the market looks like. So instead you could say, your area is one of the areas that I'm exploring for possibilities. I think, my perception is that this is what the experience is like. Is that correct? Or can you help me get a better picture, a clearer picture? Or who within that, environment hires people with my skill set? And those are all really important pieces. So obviously this week, your main assignment is to conduct that informational interview, and then your writing assignment assignment is to follow up by summarizing the informational interview and sending it to me. So submit that via Moodle and let me know how your informational interview goes, and hope you have a great week.